Jaden, a young black boy who faces constant mockery and isolation at school, finds an unexpected source of comfort in a stray dog he encounters near his home. Despite the cruelty he endures, he continues to offer kindness to the dog, forming a bond that grows stronger each day. The dog, once a mere stray, becomes the catalyst for a change in Jaden's life, leading to events he never could have imagined. What begins as a simple act of compassion evolves into a journey that transforms his future, shaping his path in ways he never anticipated. Welcome to Limelight Tales. Sometimes, a small gesture can unravel a chain of events that alters a life forever. So, let's begin this story. 12-year-old Jaden hurried down the cracked sidewalk, his backpack slung over one shoulder. The morning air was crisp, but he barely noticed the chill. He kept his head low, hoping to go unnoticed, but he knew better than to expect mercy. Across the street, a group of boys from his school had already spotted him. "Hey, Jaden," one of them called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "Didn't anyone teach you to wash your face? Oh, wait, it won't help." The others burst into laughter. Jaden tightened his grip on his backpack strap and kept walking, his cheeks burning. He wanted to say something, to shout back at them, but he knew it would only make things worse. He'd learned that lesson too many times before. By the time he reached the school gates, the insults had faded into the background, but the sting lingered. Inside, the hallways buzzed with chatter and laughter, but Jaden felt like he was walking through a fog. He made his way to his locker, trying to blend into the crowd. "Hey, Jaden!" a girl's voice called out. He turned, hopeful for a moment, but his heart sank when he saw the smirk on her face. "You forgot to bring your shadow today." "Oh, wait, it's always there." Her friends burst out laughing, and Jaden felt the familiar lump rise in his throat. He swallowed it down and turned away, focusing on the combination lock in front of him. He wasn't going to let them see him cry. At lunch, Jaden sat alone at the far end of the cafeteria, his tray untouched in front of him. A sandwich, an apple, and a carton of milk. Simple, but enough to keep his stomach from growling through the afternoon. He picked up the sandwich, but stopped when he heard a snicker from the next table. "Bet that's all he can afford," one of the boys muttered, loud enough for Jaden to hear. "Probably gets it from the trash." The laughter that followed felt like a slap. Jaden's hands trembled as he put the sandwich down. He wasn't hungry anymore. After school, Jaden walked home in silence, the weight of the day pressing heavily on his shoulders. He tried to remind himself of his mother's words, the ones she always said when the world felt too cruel. "You're worth more than their words, baby," she'd tell him. But today, even those words felt distant. As he passed the empty lot near his house, something caught his eye. A small figure was rummaging through an overturned trash can, its movements frantic and desperate. It was a dog, thin to the point of being skeletal, its matted fur clinging to its fragile frame. Jaden stopped, his heart aching at the sight. "Hey, boy," he said softly, taking a step closer. The dog froze, its ears perked up and its body tense. Jaden crouched down, trying to seem less threatening. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." He slowly reached into his backpack and pulled out the sandwich he hadn't touched at lunch. Unwrapping it carefully, he placed it on the ground and stepped back. The dog hesitated for a moment, then darted forward, snatching the sandwich and devouring it in seconds. Jaden watched with a small smile. "You were hungry, huh?" he said. The dog looked up at him, its eyes softening just a little. The next day, Jaden brought another sandwich, and the day after that, he brought scraps from dinner. Each time the dog grew braver, inching closer to him until it finally allowed Jaden to touch its head. Its fur was rough and dirty, but Jaden didn't care. He decided to name the dog Shadow, because it always seemed to appear whenever Jaden did. Shadow started waiting for him at the lot every afternoon, wagging its tail furiously as Jaden approached. Jaden found himself looking forward to those moments, the only part of his day where he felt truly seen. One day, a few weeks after Jaden and Shadow's bond had grown stronger, Jaden's routine was interrupted. As he walked past the lot, he noticed a car parked nearby. Two men were leaning against it, talking in low voices. Something about the scene felt off, but Jaden tried to keep his focus and kept walking. Just as he was about to pass, one of the men called out, "Hey kid, you seen a dog around here? A black mutt?" Jaden froze, his heart pounding. He didn't know why they were asking, but the urgency in their voices made him uneasy. He hesitated for a moment before replying, "I haven't seen anything like that." The men exchanged a brief look before one of them nodded. "All right, kid. Just remember, if you see anything, you didn't see it, okay?" Jaden's mind raced. The men didn't seem to be interested in the dog for any normal reason. Their question was oddly insistent, like they were searching for something specific, and they definitely didn't want anyone else getting involved. He didn't know what to make of it, but he wasn't about to get caught in their mess. Later that night, Jaden couldn't stop thinking about the men. He asked his mother if anyone in the neighborhood had mentioned missing a dog, but she hadn't heard anything. Jaden told her about the strange encounter, and his mother suggested that maybe they were just looking for a stray dog and had no idea who owned it. But Jaden wasn't convinced. Something about the men's behavior felt wrong. The following day, Jaden decided to avoid the lot. His suspicions gnawed at him, and the encounter with the men made him wary. Days passed, and he stayed away from Shadow, hoping whatever was going on would blow over. But the thought of the dog, alone and waiting, weighed on him too heavily. When Jaden finally returned a week later, Shadow's behavior only confirmed his unease. The dog was pacing restlessly, as though anticipating something. Jaden crouched down to comfort him, but the feeling that something was off lingered. Shadow's reaction, nervous, on edge, was more than just hunger or fear of other people. It was like the dog was expecting the men to return. The encounter had left Jaden with an unsettling feeling. The men knew more about the dog than they were letting on. There had to be something they weren't telling him. Whether they were looking for the dog for sinister reasons or simply because Shadow had belonged to someone in the past, Jaden didn't know. But it didn't matter now. Shadow was his, and no matter what had happened before, he wasn't going to let anyone take him. In the days that followed, the men never showed up again, but Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that the past, whatever it was, had been lurking around the corner. The dog's quiet existence in that lot was not as simple as it seemed, and Jaden knew there were layers to this story that hadn't been uncovered yet. But Shadow was his companion now, and no matter the past, the bond they had was more important than whatever dark history they shared. And so Jaden decided to leave the past behind, focusing instead on the present, his new friendship with Shadow, and the treasure that fate had unexpectedly thrown his way. The men never came back, but the memory of their strange questioning lingered, a reminder of the unknown that had briefly crossed his path. The next morning, when Jaden was walking home from school, Shadow greeted him at the lot as usual. But today, something was different again. Shadow was digging furiously at a patch of dirt near the corner of the lot. Jaden watched for a moment, then crouched down to help. Together, they uncovered a small rusted metal box. Jaden's hands trembled as he pried it open. Inside, he found stacks of old bills, wrapped tightly in paper bands. His eyes widened in disbelief. After the shock wore off, Jaden knew what he had to do. He carefully closed the box and made his way home, his heart racing. Later, when Jaden showed the box to his mother, she was skeptical but agreed to call the authorities. After an investigation, they learned the money had likely been buried decades ago by someone who never returned for it. Since no one could claim it, the money was legally Jaden's. With the unexpected windfall, Jaden's life began to change. His mother paid off their debts and moved them into a better neighborhood. Jaden transferred to a new school where he wasn't the only black kid, and where he finally felt like he belonged. But through it all, Shadow remained by his side. The dog had gone from a stray to Jaden's loyal companion, a constant reminder of how a single act of kindness could change everything. Years later, as Jaden sat on the porch of their new home, Shadow curled up at his feet. He often thought back to that first day in the lot. "You didn't just find that box, did you, boy?" he'd say, scratching Shadow behind the ears. "You found me." And every time, Shadow would wag his tail, as if he understood exactly what Jaden meant. Through Jaden's compassion for a stray dog, despite facing cruelty and rejection, he forms a bond that transforms his life in unexpected ways. What starts as a small act of kindness leads him to uncover hidden treasures, ultimately changing his circumstances for the better. Even in the face of hardship, empathy and care can open doors to opportunities and connections, showing that simple acts of kindness can lead to profound change and offer hope for the future. Jaden's journey reveals that we all have the power to make a meaningful impact on the world around us. Thank you all for watching and being a part of this journey. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. And here's something to think about. Never underestimate the small choices you make. Sometimes, a simple gesture can lead to life-changing outcomes. Your support helps me bring more stories to life. So let's keep this conversation going.